Are you
How
okay? I
about
mean,
you?
I saw all this stuff about the fire. Are you okay?
I'm in San Francisco,
Oh, okay,
so
that's
yeah, 500 miles away, so all is good.
right. Very cool. David, how are you?
Good morning, everybody.
How are we doing today?
Okay, doing
Yeah,
all right.
Very
good.
I had
psychedelic
surgery last
background
week.
there, David.
Actually, that's an invitation I produced this past year.
Nope.
So I, I thought it looked pretty cool.
Wow. Was that done
Definitely a form
digitally
of self
or?
promotion.
Yeah, I gotta say that most of what I have in house is digital, unless it's got, embossing or some sort of unique finishing to it. So,
That looks like
um,
you used some of that, like the vivid colors from like Xerox or Fuji or Ricoh, the specialty fifth and sixth colors.
no, because when I saw this, I just had them reduce a little bit of black out
Yeah.
of the colors, and they began to pop. You go up 2% in your other colors, and it comes right out. So if I can establish it that way, then that's what I would prefer.
No, that's an
And
interesting
that was
idea
done
too.
on an indigo. That's done on an indigo.
That's fascinating because a lot of artists don't understand the function of selective color and
Hmm.
being able to remove black from your other colors cleans them up. And it's the same thing with removing colors from your white for brighter whites. I use selective color a
Hmm.
lot and go in and adjust those palettes very manually.
Wait, explain to me the white again. You could take color out of the white?
Yeah, when you have like dirty pictures off of the internet or someone sends you a muddy
Wait,
looking
wait,
J.
wait. Kevin,
Wait,
I
come
know
back
where you're
again.
No,
going
no,
with
I
this,
mean,
but I
I
saw
mean,
this coming 10
no,
miles
I mean,
away.
no,
Matt
no,
stepped
no.
right in there.
You're the one with the dirty mind because I'm talking about dirty color. It's like it's been adulterated, or it just wasn't very clean to start with. So a lot of times if you want a pure white, you have to go in and remove all the other colors from the white. And you'll be surprised how much color is in the white. It's not actually white, but your screen is not as discerning and neither is your eye. So you can do an A/B and you just select color in Photoshop, go to just select whites. You're just only going to adjust the whites, and you move all those sliders to the left and take all the color out of the whites. You're like, wow, what
Really?
a difference. Yeah. And the same thing with blacks. If everything's looking a little muddy, just as David has indicated, you go into the blacks and remove some of the black from the other colors, and then they do brighten up.
Hmm.
Huh.
Yeah, I mean, if you're helping your client design for press and you're beginning to see what that imagery looks like, you know, kind of know what the press is capable of doing, kind of know what the outcome is going to be, then that upfront direction is really helpful and actually becomes somewhat standard. But Matt, in what you just said, um, that comes through experience as well
Hmm.
of being able to make those moves.
Yeah.
So,
And it's also an old trick that when you have a rich black and you have to, I used to do telephone directories,
Hmm.
and the one, it was all web press. But one thing that a web press typically cannot handle, because you're printing on toilet paper, okay? You have a certain ink saturation. So you cannot print a rich black. You cannot send an RGB file to these presses. It's forbidden.
mhm.
So everything has to be in CMYK, and all of your blacks have to be 100% black. So that's where that selective color comes in, where you can take your black and remove all the other colors from the black so that you're just left with black.
Mhm.
Very cool. Well, thank you for that lesson in design, Matt. That was awesome. I had no idea. I had no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kevin, I think we can go home now. We already learned something for
We're
today.
done. We're done.
We're
Okay.
done.
That's an issue that we have all the time in pre-press is that certain machines can only produce certain, blacks faithfully.
Right.
And you have a maximum, usually your maximum, if you combine C, M, Y, and K, and you have 15% yellow and 85% cyan, you got all these different values and you add them all up, they cannot go beyond 220 or 240%.
Right.
Because then the machine is like, hey, I can't reproduce that saturation of color on this stock with this medium. And that's where EFI and Fiery all come into play. Because what they'll do is they'll compress that down into a space that will fit on that paper with that toner or that indigo ink. And that's why everybody is like, that's not what it was supposed to look like. Well, that's how you built your file, and that's how it all got compressed, and then that's what you ended up with.
So guys, listen, I thought we would first of all thank you all for being here. We still have a couple people that we have a lot of people that you normally should be popping on here in a couple of minutes. But I thought I'd kick off the conversation based on the theme that we had, and I've actually seen Sabine. You've been doing some good work around like the big trends that you're seeing in embellishments for 2025, and maybe we can kind of kick that off on like what your gut feeling is, and maybe we can have everybody kind of join in and talk about what you guys are seeing out there. So, Sabine, what are you kind of seeing out there?
I see a lot of confusion. I see a lot of designers not knowing what's possible. We're back to that. It hasn't changed, unfortunately, in the last whatever years.
Yeah.
So can I interject here? 2024 was a train wreck. It was it was the same.
I'm trying to be nice about this, but
it was more of the same, where designers were like, well, let's try this and let's try that, and there wasn't really any forward motion with I mean, there are trends and there are little sub pockets here and there, but by the time the year was over, it was like I was more confused than anything. So this year seems to be moving into more of a melting pot, but I'm hoping that what we can do as a group is trying to congeal it a little bit better.
Explain melting pot, please.
Melting pot is
melting pot.
You've got minimalist and maximalist.
Yes.
Sitting right next to each other.
Yeah.
On the same scale of, hey, this is what we're going to do this year. And you're like, wait a minute, those are like complete opposite ends of the spectrum. But then again, you look, one thing that I noticed, it was an interesting observation that someone brought up on one of their little podcasts, and it might have been author Parjan or something. I don't know who did it, but the premise was like, have you noticed that lately everybody looks like they did in the 90s? And nothing has really changed in the way people look since the 90s. In other words, you look at the photos from the 60s, everybody had a certain look, a certain style, the clothes were all a certain way. You look at the 50s, it was extremely distinctively different. You look at the 40s, you look at the 30s, you look at the 20s, but since 1990 and moving forward, it's just become this melting pot of all those styles.
Yeah.
And so you see a guy with a top knot, and then you see a guy with a mullet, and then you see a guy with a shaved head. And then you see a guy with long flowing hair. So it's just all over the place and everything works.
I think you just described everybody here.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at us.
David has the long flowing hair. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Matt can't compete with that one. I think that that's a problem, but it's also an opportunity, because how do I say this? And one of my future blog posts is going to be, what does Pantone's color of the year actually mean to you? Do you care? Because it's like, why would you care? But never mind, don't tell anybody yet. But I think it's really the good thing, the pro is that everybody can utilize it to do what they want to do with it. The bad thing or the bad news is they don't know what to do with it to begin with.
Well, the one thing that I'm confused about with that specific example with the Pantone colors, like, okay, you're telling me this is the color of the year, and it's supposed to be like, oh, woohoo, let's throw confetti, and it's like,
Oh, Matt's on fire today.
it's like
Yeah.
poop brown. It's like,
It's
ooh,
not just that. What are you going to do with it next year? You swallow your branding out when
it's
they paint
like,
purple?
well, yeah, it's just marketing.
Oh yeah, of course it is.
Publicity, that's all it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All it is. They're just trying to draw attention to themselves, and guess what? They have.
Well,
They
the
have.
question is, I'm wondering, does anybody know how the whole, which is taking the conversation sideways, Pantone splitting up from Adobe has worked for them?
No, how's that going?
No, I'm asking.
Oh, I don't
No.
know.
The designers are trying to find ways around it. 10 ways to Friday. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have you?
That was-
What have you hearing?
That was the discussion I had with you, Kevin. It's close to a year ago when all this
Okay.
kind of went down.
Mhm.
It's like I'm sitting in there building swatches all day because my promotional department, they put your logo on pens, they embroider hats and jackets and shirts, and all of those vendors almost ultimately require Pantone colors, especially when it comes to screen printing, and you have select colors to choose from. You're doing like a 4-color screen print, not like full color, but you have
Yeah.
brown and blue and this color of green and that shade of yellow, and those are the only 4 colors that go on that shirt. So they have to be represented as a spot color, and the standard over the years has always been the Pantone spot. So if I can't give them PMS colors, then they're like, well, then you're just going to get whatever you're going to get, and there's no refunds or exchanges because they can't guarantee the color. So I have to build the swatch. I have to go online, look up the color values, the LAB values, go into my swatches, build the swatch, name it exactly how Pantone would have named it. All caps, Pantone 360 space, Pantone space, 360 space C.
Wow.
And name the color swatch that, and that way when it goes to them, they don't know any different.
So how long does it take you to do that?
Yeah, my question too.
About a minute.
All right.
Per
He has
color?
this down pat. But here's the question: with you using so many Pantone colors, for you more than like, let's say, a freelancer or small design studio, it might make sense to buy into the monthly
If
fee,
you
but
were a
you're not doing
large,
it. So
if
this
you
is
were a
why I'm
large
asking-
design, if you were a large design studio with a bunch of sub-junior designers, okay, not very experienced designers,
I'm
then
sorry, there's a new term, people. Sub-junior.
Mhm.
That's on fire today.
well, there's senior and junior designers, and
then
then there's like
sub-junior.
apprentices. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
Okay.
like just on a beginning level. So you need to give them those tools to start with, so that they understand how to progress forward from there without them.
Right. Interesting.
So, but you're not buying into it. Does anybody know anybody who pays for the monthly fee?
I don't know a single person that does.
David, do you know anybody?
I do not know, and I don't know only because I've never asked the question.
I'm just
Marco,
curious.
Marco,
Yeah.
you're on. Can you hear us? Do you know anybody that's paying for that Pantone or no?
Marco's incognito today.
I'm just because I'm at the customer side.
Ah, okay.
So
No,
yeah.
it's good to see you or hear you.
But what you ask? I didn't hear you quite. What you asked me?
No,
What
the
was
question.
your question?
The question is, in Europe, are you seeing a lot of designers that are paying for the Pantone plugin to Adobe CS Suite? Or is it since they split with Adobe, are you hearing any issues, or are they buying into it?
I don't know about it, but I have the issues. Yeah, I have the issues if I need to create something now when they split it because of the new Photoshops and Illustrators don't have the Pantone swatch inside.
Yeah.
So I can do
Right.
it the similar way, like Matt said, create a swatch with that colors, and that it is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So in our front end with the Fiery that say drives the Iridescent or whatever machine it's going to drive, that Pantone library is built in. So Fiery and Pantone are still in cahoots with each other. I
Still.
guess because Fiery buys the license to
Right.
acquire or use the Pantone library. So that's built into the Fiery. And the reason for that is because the machine has somewhat of an extended gamut because the toner, the dry toner, is so bright. It's on the border of fluorescent, just on the border, but it's definitely brighter than CMY and K that you would put
Yeah.
on, you know, a typical lithographic offset press. So it's able to have its own algorithms and formulations for developing colors. So it can get a little closer rather than using the standard formulas. So it has its own, rather than using the Adobe method of creating that palette for whatever results you're going to output, it uses its own internal Xerox Iridescent version. And so if you feed it those Pantone colors, it determines how it lays down that CMYK differently because of what that machine is capable of doing. So I have to be able to maintain. I don't send anything CMYK to that machine. If there's spot colors, I make sure the spot colors go to that machine. So if I were to convert it all to CMYK first, then that machine would have a reduced output.
So can you, for the lower level sub designer in me, what you're basically saying is that every machine, I'm sorry,
I didn't, that wasn't for you, Sabine.
No, I know, no, but I like to ask questions. So basically what we're saying, every machine, every print, whatever, every digital press, lays down, that's the word I'm looking for. It's still early here, people. Lays down CMYK in a different fashion.
Right.
They're not all in the same sequence.
Well, no, it's not necessarily. It's what I'm trying to say is that it's the toners for this machine are different than the toners for that machine. Or
Right.
the inks for this machine are different than the ink. Some use a gel ink, some use a liquid ink, some use the Xerox toners are different from the Ricoh toners.
Right.
So someone like Xerox is going to partner with Fiery to create a better formula for how to lay that down in order to get a little bit brighter blue.
Got it.
Or that type thing.
Interesting.
Basically, I go inside in the talk. What Matt said, not every cyan is the same values on the toners on the different machines. You know, it's not the same cyan optical values, so you need to lay down differently. Also on the Konica Minolta machines, we have also in the Fiery and Konica Minolta RIP, you have the possibility to alter the spot Pantone colors. You know, I did it at one customer for the roll machine. Basically, they got a lot of labels in the spot colors, and we try to emulate as good as we can the Pantone colors with the CMYK machine. So basically, you print it out through the controller, then you take it with a spectrophotometer, read the values, readjust it to get it as much as you can get it close to the standard Pantone colors. And also, as you know, the Pantone also issues the swatch book Pantone to CMYK or CMYK to Pantone, something like this. So Pantone gives the visual look of their Pantone colors printed in the CMYK, basically.
Which
because
is
you cannot get all the Pantone colors, especially not the main one, orange, purple, that purple green. You cannot get it as
sky blue
from the standard stones. Yeah, from the standard stoner.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have those swatch books, and down one side of the strip, there's the
CMYK?
well, I think it's on the left side, there's the spot color, and on the
Right.
right side is if you were to print that spot color as CMYK. And to build that book, it's quite a masterpiece. The trial and error in technology, hey, kudos to them, and they've been doing it for years. But it actually shows you if you send this spot color to a CMYK machine, this is what you're going to end up with.
Mhm.
And a lot of times you're like, you've got to be kidding me. Wow, what a difference.
So do you feel overall that with CMYK, as Marco also said, he prints it out, then he finesses it, that you can get closer with CMYK than the actual book suggests? The
Possibly,
original Pantone color?
possibly, but I don't know of anybody in their right mind who would go to that trouble of doing it. In our shop, the thing
David knows someone.
Me.
you
See?
do.
So
Nice
what
background
I'll
change,
do,
David. Look at him. He changed his
So
background.
you
all the
are
time.
wacko.
yeah. So
yeah.
so if a client is looking for something specific and it's critical, sometimes you can say, we're printing this digitally. You got to give a little leeway, and that's okay. But what I'll do is I'll take an 8.5 by 11 sheet. I'll take the CMYK breakdown, and I'll move 2% in different directions, and then send that to them because, and they'll pick. I want this one, and for me, it just resolves a lot of issues. It takes a little bit of time for me to see it, and then to send it to them, and then get feedback on it. But it's part of the internal of achieving what they need.
Oh,
So
it saves a lot of hassle and just frustration in the background, on the back end,
yeah,
especially if it's a repeat customer,
Mhm.
and they're coming back.
yeah.
Because I've done this.
This is what I find. I find that most repeat customers are not that concerned with it. When you have somebody new, like for instance,
Hmm.
producing some sort of collateral, an invitation, the last vendor didn't get their color correct, and then they'll come to me and they'll say, we didn't like this because, well, once I do go through that motion, they usually never ask a second time. And once it's dialed in, like I do these corporate cards digitally, once I dial it in, it's there. The formula's there, and I just apply it. It's really simple. It really saves a tremendous amount of time in the future. But what it also does is whenever they have something else that needs to be produced, they say, send it to him. He's got our color down.
That's right. See, he's
Yeah.
not just a pretty face, Matt. No, because they want somebody to. That's the number one question we get, and we get constant questions from our members community. And David knows that he's part of this. That I need a printer who can, and they're looking for somebody trustworthy because they've been taken to the cleaners one too many times, and they're looking for somebody they can trust. And if they find somebody they can trust, like David, they will stick with them.
Well, all of us, I think that we are tuned into what that outcome is. We're not order takers. You want to be saturated and full of color, and you just don't want to put it through production. And what happens is what happens in the end. It's well, it's important to me that I can deliver to them a better product than they're expecting. So you go through your standards, which might not be other people's standards. So
Do
that's
you, if I can add on to this one a question, do you purely print CMYK or do you use extended gamma to get to the color?
I'm truthfully never used extended color.
Okay.
Never used it.
Interesting.
I've been able to fine tune and to nail. That comes out of experience too, right, Matt? I mean, you begin to look at something and you begin to understand what you need to do to dial it in.
Yeah, and after 10 years in pre-press, you get a pretty good idea. It's
Right.
a lot. It's all experience. You just look at it and say, "Yeah, that can be done," or "It can't be done that way." If you want to have it done, it has to be done this way. That type of thing. But that's where we have these new technologies that do use the extended gamut, so that you can say, well, if we add neon pink or neon yellow or violet and green, then we can achieve those colors. And a lot of large brands do that. They still run essentially their own version of a hexachrome in order. And you look at their packaging, you look, where they run the color dots down the side, there's like 8 or 9 of them. So it's like CMYK +1 +1 +1 +1 +1 +1. It's like our newest printer at Blue Ocean, it's CMYK +7. And I'm like,
+7?
plus
What is
six.
that?
What kind of press
How
is
many
it?
colors do you have to that?
Is that an offset?
Yeah, I mean, you don't load them all at the same time, but it
Okay.
is it's essentially +7. And so it could be white, it could be clear, it could be neon pink, neon yellow, orange.
Digital or offset? Kevin already asked.
It's inkjet
Is it white format?
wide format. Yeah, very wide
Oh, wide
format.
format. All right.
Very wide, but it'll print on it just about anything.
Yeah.
You take the door off your front door and lay it on that machine and print it.
Sounds like a good application. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hey.
really.
You never know.
It also does varnish and it also does texture. So, that video I just did last week, that painting with the roses
Yeah.
and all that. And so it can reproduce the canvas, the palette knife strokes, the brush strokes.
What press is this?
Is this a Swiss Q one?
That's
It's
what I
the-
was saying, Kevin. We
In
are
your head?
just on a roll
Yeah,
today.
it's the Swiss Q Nyla.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. They just came out with I guess their new generation.
Yeah.
They announced it this week, so it's a big
Yeah.
deal.
So one quick note on that. I don't know if anybody wants to take up the torch on this, because when this technology that we're supposed to be discussing in this forum, being digital varnish and digital foil, when I came out on the scene almost 5 years ago now, nobody knew anything about how to do it, and nobody could tell you how to do it. And so you were just kind of, like Kevin says, the Wild West. It's like we don't really know what we're doing. We're all just trying to figure it out. There's really no standards, so do whatever works for you, blah, blah, blah. And so with this technology, with the Swiss Q, it's the very same thing. The one thing that it can do are these lenticular prints, where it's one thing one way and another thing another way, or you shift it and tilt it. And that's the next video I'm going to put up, actually.
Oh, yes. I've seen the samples.
It's I can hardly, my brain is like, what? It's like beyond intense. And you can print that on just about anything, but the thicker the acrylic you print it on, the more intense it can become. But they can't tell you how to do it. They've got all these great samples, but I'm like, isn't there a toolkit? Is there anyone to teach me how? Where's the resources?
Matt,
Go online
tell them to call us. We'll figure that out for them.
Yeah, I know, right? So we need to, go. I went online trying to look up tutorials. Nothing.
Wait a second. Did you talk to Jason? I assume it's Swiss Q Print.
I don't personally know anybody at Swiss Q Print.
Well, you know somebody who knows somebody now, and I will make introductions if you'd like.
Please do.
Because Jason is the one that usually, the few times I've made that trek out to Elgin, whatever, which I didn't think was that far outside of Chicago. Now I know. I make introductions because he's usually the one who figures things out. That's what he lives for.
Yeah, I think every good OEM needs what we call application specialists, right? People who understand.
And that's him.
Is that, those are like the best profiles, because they have like the profile of a designer and they understand the equipment really well, and they're able to really make those applications sing.
Yeah. As a side note, I just would like to say that every time I log into LinkedIn,
everywhere. You're everywhere, Sabine. Every time I open my LinkedIn too, I see you.
every time you're right there on top.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Great thing. That's a great.
Hey,
I
I
mean,
got somebody who commented, which I thought was very nice. He said, "This is fabulous because you bring it right to the point. You don't drag your heels on something. You go right to the point." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I only have 30 seconds. I better be quick."
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a couple people from SwissQ start following me, so
Yeah.
maybe
Now,
we'll
let me
gain
introduce
some.
you to Jason. I'll do this right after the call because he's the application specialist and he's the one that I normally would go to with any crazy questions.
And to be
Yeah,
honest, like
Wait a
that
second, he was in Chicago. You could have met him.
yeah.
that
They actually and in Vegas, they had a booth in Vegas, and I
Yes.
did not stop there because I did not know what they were doing.
well,
Okay.
to be honest, their tech definitely, I think, in my opinion at least, qualifies as digital embellishment. Like
It does.
Yeah.
maybe we
Oh,
should
yeah.
have the wide format guys join this call as well. I think that'd be a good place to start.
I mean, the only thing I would be concerned about is conflict with MGI
Well, no, I
because
mean they just sponsor the embellishment designer. Everybody's welcome. Skodix, Harrison, Bruno, everybody's welcome to come. Just because we have a sponsor doesn't mean that this is open to all. So I
yeah,
definitely,
because I find this to be new technology that everyone is like not
yeah,
even aware of.
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of. How could I have gone to Printing United and not know about it?
right.
Because he didn't talk to me first. I'm teasing. No, I know
Uh,
these guys for years. I've known these guys for years, but you know, it's so new that it's not really widely available yet.
right.
I can't really talk about it because the first thing when people see these reels and more, this is happening. People like, this is fabulous. Where can I get it?
Right.
So if it's so new that it's not really available
Mhm.
yet on the floor somewhere, I remember when the owner of Swiss Q Print and one guy were exhibiting at a teeny tiny booth at Print United, and I stumbled over them. And basically, then year after year, they grew and grew and grew to what they're now. So
Mhm.
it's fascinating. And now it's available, obviously, but at the beginning, it was just,
It's great technology.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so here's really quick. I had the pleasure of having David on our podcast, which I think is coming out on Thursday.
David
Uh,
Drucker,
yeah, David Drucker. And we talked
fabulous.
a little bit about a really interesting project that he was working on. Matt, I don't know if I know Sabine, you did a piece on it, on this new project. Have you heard about what David did with his Safari book or no?
No.
David pushed it,
Oh, he pushed it hard.
as
You want to
as
explain?
he's well known for. That's why we love him.
Why don't you tell us more about your piece that you put together?
I kind of went the other direction from digital, and it was only an idea. I have a friend, maybe I can pull this up. Um, I have a friend who took a photo of a family of zebras in on Safari, and I've had it in my phone since she posted it over a year ago. And then I had a prospect ask me about producing a series of 8 Safari books for them.
8 books, might I point out.
8 books, and really the budget was it was unlimited. Let's put it that way. It was a billionaire who took 8 of his clients on Safari. So this was the legacy book. Oh, look at that. This was the book.
Oh no, I did see that. I did see
Yeah.
that. Sabine, you made a great presentation on that.
Thank you.
You know, so Matt, it isn't any different than you experimenting on your presses. You want to know how far you can go with it, what can be done and what can't be done. I worked with Metal Magic on this, and we originally started by embossing, multi-level embossing, sculpture embossing the zebras on paper. But then I was looking at how we're going to build the rest of the book, and they talked about gold gilding, and for me that didn't work. It didn't say Safari to it. It said glitter, but it
Mhm.
didn't say Safari. And I had asked about embossing metal, the copper, and I was forewarned that the metal's probably going to break the die. The die was expensive to make to begin with, but I would think it's much like you, Matt, where you have this piece of machinery and you don't know its abilities until you get into it. And if that means investing more of your money and your time, your own money and your own time, because at some point down the line, you might have the opportunity to use it to sell the idea. And I went through 3 different thicknesses of copper until we got it, and we wound up being able to emboss that copper. What happened then after is that I decided I was going to move the gilding into copper, and then came the ribbons
Yeah.
to lift it and the
Spot on
reminder,
color
and it
match.
kind of all fell into place. And I really put this together and got all the um, all the yes, we want to do this. We like what you came up with, but I really didn't see the magnitude of what we were doing until the whole book was put together, and utilize that as what is the next idea? Where can we go with that? So I handed over to Sabine first to put it out there. I mean, I finished this in October, but I wanted it put together and I wanted it explained the right way. And then was in talking to Kevin to put it out there. Now, what I do on my social media is I'm going to begin to diversify how I send that out, who I tag. And what I've done in the last 2 weeks, if you look at my LinkedIn, is I've really begun to take older productions and rebuild my following. And I've been able to do that because I want to try to, through LinkedIn, put this out to select communities. The last thing that I did with this is I sent in about 7 or 8 different types of papers, and we did the embossing on those papers. So I'm going to do a study on that. Refraction of light, reflection of light, uh,
Huh.
how it looks once it's once it's done on a darker paper, on a metallic paper, so on and so forth. And it's really the studies that I've done for my 41 years in the past, but now I'm putting it out there.
Yeah.
And,
Hmm.
I want to see what the response is. I put up yesterday an AB Dick machine.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I got over 1,600 uh, views of
Yeah.
that within a 24-hour period. So,
That's the first press I ever ran.
right. I mean, so you should go on there and tell your story, Matt. That's what I'm trying to do.
I even still have a picture of me. It was 1981.
Oh, please
Wow.
put that up there, please.
You wouldn't recognize him. I remember that yeah, you would not recognize him, Matt, if he does share that photo. It's going to be phenomenal. But what's really interesting too is that was when I was at MGI. They were the first dealers that we had in North America. Was AB Dick. So that they kind of took us to the U.S. Back when I was at MGI. So that's kind of an interesting story.
Yeah. But with most of these, I'll say they're men. I would
Yeah.
love to see, to hear about a lady that started in the industry there. But that is a starting type of press, or maybe a multi,
Mm.
uh, and such. And we have these stories, we don't share them, and by sharing them, somebody put up yesterday that they're running envelopes and there was a clasp on the envelope and what they did to the blanket
Yeah.
resolve that. Well, hey, that's great information, but we've all done that. Let's hear about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you that's not the direction I really want to go in with this. I want to go more towards designers, but I find that there are less and less designers that are responding. I know that they're there, and I know that they're viewing what I've put up there. And I can tell that because I put up a piece of artwork about 4 years ago. It's a motorcycle painting I did, and
Mm-hmm.
I got 15,000 views on that.
Yeah.
So I know they're there. I just
Right.
got to get them to
Yeah.
come out. So I'm just trying different things on LinkedIn to see who's responding to that.
Very cool. Very.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, to come back to our original from a design perspective, Sabine, Matt, David, do you guys have any predictions as to what we're going to see a lot of this year other than confusion?
I,
I'm gonna say this because I know what I want to see.
Okay.
I'm working on a school that is building a new building, and they have an illustration of the building, and they're going after high net worth individuals in this brochure for revenue,
Yeah.
but the the illustration of the building really falls short.
Yeah.
is
I,
this Make a Wish?
no. It's actually yeshiva, and in Brooklyn,
Huh.
and they're not they're it's not being presented the right way to the group who have the money for the building. So in looking at this, I looked at the Scodex, the gold Scodex, and the relief it has in its print, and I said to the designer, illustrate, do a line drawing of that rendering, and let's put that on the cover. Because to me, that illustration in gold is jewelry.
So we see a lot of that in real estate. For example, in high-end real estate, when they're trying to sell it, they're only going to make maybe 100 brochures because of the price. And you'll see like some of these real estate company will hire designers. Actually, there's one guy in Orlando that does nothing but this. We'll go and use that tactile effect you were just talking about, David,
We do that a lot.
to do
Yeah.
like the wood paneling in the flooring, or the tiles, so I could feel what tiles feel like, or the windows, they feel
Mhm.
like glass. So by using, I guess, tactile digital embellishment effects, the printed piece can actually feel like the real thing. So just how do you get people to engage with your house?
Well, we have to be the leaders in suggesting them.
Yeah,
You have a designer that has something like this designer. He's very well known designer. In the past, I would have just taken his work and produced it.
right.
But I saw something different, so you give them an introduction into your idea. We here will set those trends. You have to have some design sense your own. You have ideas because you use the equipment and what the equipment can do and what they can't do. You have to put thought to it and say, if I'm going to do a project on this, this is what I'd like to do on it. So
Right.
the opportunity comes to you, and you have to begin to let them know the direction that you want to go into. Design and help them design for press.
I think the direction that is possible.
Yeah.
We just did a survey among our 20,000 newsletter recipients, and they're like, okay, what's your biggest problem? And one of the top ones was, we have limited time to learn about this because we're doing so many other things, and that's what I've been saying for quite a while. They don't drop everything and learn about print. They're doing a million other things. So it's up to the likes of us, as David said, to basically help them and say, they don't know what they don't know. They design to the limits of what they know. And they might not be aware that even though this has been around the block for a while now, we can elevate this by doing this. We can elevate this by doing that.
Right.
And that's our, I don't want to say our job, that's our responsibility
It
to
is
do
our
that.
job.
Because yeah, our job, I wanted a bigger word than job, David. I was looking for
Yeah.
something, because they don't know, and I don't blame them. It's confusing. They go to their printer, and we all know there's two kinds. There's the order takers, and there's the ones like David and Matt who basically say, okay, wait a second. Now that I look at it, how about? But many printers don't do that. They run it and they're done, and they're looking for the next one.
Well, it's all about the money, But for me, and I say this, I believe in the podcast that Kevin did with me. I can never be inspired until I begin to have conversations with creative. And I don't know how far I can go. And you can introduce something to them, and they might say, well, we can't use it on this, or our budget doesn't allow it, but at least you planted a seed
Yeah,
Hmm.
for the future. And in
absolutely.
100% of the time, I see it come back
Interesting.
at some point. If you're afraid to give your 2 cents, or maybe you're reluctant to give that information, well, once you do and you do see it come back, isn't that inspiration to continue to do that?
Yeah. It's
And
like you give them one piece of information to elevate it that they didn't know before. So next time it's coming back, then you can give them another piece. So you don't go at it with a water hose, but you basically help them elevate bit by bit by bit. Absolutely right, David.
I agree.
yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell you that it's just in the last few years that I really discovered this of myself. And in 100% of the time, I always give my 2 cents
Mm.
because it becomes our production.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not a partner, I'm on the team. And so, if they have a metal sign that they have to do, they're going to call me. They want to do something on fabric. They want to do something. They're going to call me because now the conversation is not one of, well, I'm a vendor.
Right.
All right. What does that mean?
Right. Right. How about you, Matt? What do you see as some of the major trends for 2025?
Well, I did an entire presentation, but I don't think we have time to go through it now.
Well, let's see what you got. Throw it up
Um,
there. Let's see what we got.
It was, I just put a little ebook together. All right. So I was seeing a lot of texture, anything that's AI generated. You all can see this, right?
Yeah.
Anything that's abstract and geometric and quirky has to be more ethical and more inclusive. But there's this shift going back towards nostalgia, but then it has to be sustainable. But now there's the metaverse and AR and VR, but then there's custom typography, and we're seeing a lot of that. Dynamic gradients, that kind of combines back in with the textures, more imagination and surreal type of things, humorous and hand-drawn things. Inclusive design is additional mention, being able to span cultural differences better, and more accessibility by differently abled persons. So you would have to have friends who are autistic. You would have to have friends that had color or vision
Visually
impairments,
impaired.
that type of thing. A lot of the times when I'm working with color or textures or shades, I have to keep in mind, like, if I were colorblind,
Right.
how would I view this?
Interesting.
Yeah. Overall, I think it's just going to be an intriguing blend. Like I talked about, everybody since 1990 up until now kind of all looks the same as they have through that whole span of time, because it's all become this melting pot of styles and everything kind of works. But now, like I did in one of my last videos, we start blenderizing these kinds of styles, but with more nature and humanity. So rather than just trying to come up with a commodity, you're putting more of a style or personality into it. And I think the most common implication is going to be more motion, more movement, anything that implies perceived movement. So, when you want to talk about styles, I was thinking, okay, so we've got textures, lots of textures. Let me get my notes up here. Grains, heat mapping. because we've gone from, the gradient-free, stark, clean edges to adding film grains and textures. So film grain, I'm seeing a lot of that popping up in a lot of things. Adobe Max used film grains in their last presentation.
What is
tile.
film grains?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, see up here in the corner in the upper right, use
Upper
my
right.
mouse,
Oh, that one.
yeah,
Got it.
film grain. So when I used to shoot film, one of my favorites to shoot was Tri-X 1000, which was the grainiest film you could get. And if you pushed it, then it got even more grainy. And if you did it in color, it created these kinds of effects. It was just, I thought you could get that with film grain. Now you're moving back into the nostalgia of trying to recreate a film grain in your graphic design. Heat mapping, that seems to be a thing. I'm seeing more of that come up, even to the point where Adobe's sponsoring tutorials on it. And that takes a little bit of skill in Photoshop, but you can pull that off. Maximalism. Now, you would only use this for big brands. And I find it a little tedious because I tend to be a little ADHD. So looking at this is a bit overwhelming for me, but you're going to be seeing a lot of this too, this maximalist, extremely detailed. Like, this is a really good application for AI though. If you're on a budget and don't have the time or the personnel to illustrate something like this, AI can really go a long way with generating this type of maximalism. Conversely, minimalism. This is a great ad by PayPal. That is so sharp. I mean, it says everything you need to say in just like 3 things on the page with no background. I absolutely love minimalism. This is more of a classic style of minimalism, and then this is as minimalist as you can get. So some good examples of that too. We're going to see a lot more unconventional color combinations, and some of these I just kind of cry a little bit when I see them, but I'm just passing on what people are kind of like moving towards. So burgundy and electric lime, look what it does to the burgundy. I mean, if you were to isolate that burgundy, that's a really clean wine color.
It looks brown.
It looks crazy, doesn't it? So the combination of colors changes the colors, and that's basically the intent. Teal and red, I wouldn't have thought of teal and red, but it works. I actually like it. Of course, there's different shades of it here. It's not just this color and that color, but I think in a fun kind of way that does work. Copper and black, this has always been one of my favorite combinations. I don't know why this is being labeled as a new trend, but basically, if you were to look up a color guide online with what colors to blend with copper, there are other shades of copper. They're just other shades of copper. There's really no other recommendation for that. Coral and green, how bizarre. But if your green isn't too intense, so here we're back to the color value thing. If you were to reduce this to a black and white image, the intensity of the apple is very close to the intensity of the coral, particularly down in the gradient in the lower right-hand corner. So you don't have a lot of difference between the color value between the two, which actually makes it work. Orange and blue.
Oh, go Gators.
Yeah. Now that we're having more extended color gamuts on these machines, you're going to see people pushing the boundaries on these kinds of colors. Orange and hot pink. I don't really care about the combination of those two colors, but when you combine it with a third, like teal that I did here, and added a little film grain, I think it works out pretty well. But yeah, hot pink and orange, you're going to have to be careful about how you combine those two. Turquoise and tangerine, that's one of my favorites. I actually love that. Amazing contrast. Lavender and olive green.
I like that actually. That looks nice.
Yeah, but
Well,
look at
we talked about earth tones, right?
Yeah.
Becoming more and more popular. I mean, I think that's right in it, right?
Yeah, because it's kind of muted. but you would think lavender. I don't know, but when you see it here, you're like, that could actually work. Indigo and copper. This has always been one of my favorite combinations.
Nice.
I think it's just absolutely. It's rich. It's really rich. Um, Aqua and ruby red, but look at the proportions. I think if you had a lot of red and a little aqua, or a lot of aqua and a little red, then that works, and it definitely works here. Um, you're going to see a lot of custom masking where you're using shapes to inset things. Look at these on the left, walk this world. And they're taking in this particular campaign, they're taking the ribbon shape of the M's in the logo type and recreating that in these shapes, in these little ads, which is quite clever. Here's some more masking. This is like a revival of like mid to late 80s. We were doing
I
this.
just want to say, déjà vu.
Yeah. It's that revival. If it's 20, 25 years old, it's always going to come back.
Right.
Old is new again.
Yeah, this is one of my absolute favorites. And if you were to think of how to embellish this, look at all this negative space in the orange you have to work with, that if you put the right texture in there, would actually make this more maximalist than it is minimalist. And this is one of my absolute favorites because it's still this masking effect, but they use these wild, cool, flowing, organic, extremely colorful designs with the typography, particularly in the upper right-hand corner, that is this retro. It's a retro serif. So that's the next thing I think you're going to be seeing a lot of, and I'm already seeing it as of January 1st. So it's this kind of groovy, fluid, bubble-like typography. And I'm also seeing already a lot of tutorials. One thing my LinkedIn isn't just a bunch of marketing. My LinkedIn is this constant stream of tutorials, and they're mostly done by folks in India. I guess that's what they do. And it's how to create all these ribbon effects, all these weird font styles, how to customize all these things. This ad actually showed up on my Facebook feed the other day. And I'm like, oh, they're going with the bubble type. And I'm like, well, where do you get stuff like this? Where do designers find this? You can either follow these tutorials and start amassing them and start, I guess, practicing them. And then, like, I subscribe to several service bureaus that provide fonts and images and videos and music and graphics and vector and seamless designs and all that stuff. And Envato actually has a section for fonts. And when you type in retro font, this is what you get. And I'm like, wow, there's all kinds of retro stuff here. Additionally, in other, like I use Dreamstime, which is another art service bureau that I use. They don't have fonts there, but they do have letter sets where they're vector. There's like A through Z and 0 through 9. And so you take all those little pieces and string them together to form a headline or words or something that you want. And they're already done. They're already done up like this, and so you don't have to go and create them, take time in Illustrator to create them.
Adobe does this now on Express. So they
Yeah.
have word art where you kind of say make it look like a pink bubble, and then you type in your word, and Adobe Express has this now. It's pretty
And
cool.
you can also do that in oh crap, now I forget.
Canva?
No, the one that we use for Firefly. You can do that in Firefly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. That's what I'm seeing. And that's kind of looking at my world around me, what other artists are doing, what the trends are on what these designers are doing on social media with the tutorials for what's upcoming, and that they're like all doing it. And what other design bureaus are doing as far as what they think.
For you, Matt, because I know we reached the top of the hour. You had a number of times you mentioned copper. So are we saying copper is gonna overtake gold?
I do
Or
believe
rival
so.
it?
I do
Yeah.
believe so. We're going to see
Yeah.
more copperish tones. And you
It's
can
more
actually,
warm, it's more different.
yeah,
David
it's
was full on trend with his book there.
totally ahead of its time on that one.
Oh, he
Mhm.
always.
Hey, Matt, I would love for us to do like a Tactful Trendsetters video of you just doing that presentation. I think that'd be great to put a little video together and drop it on social media. This is really
Well,
fantastic.
Sabine, you're about to do the same thing.
No, but I'm talking about really print technologies and print applications. So I'm not going into typography because there's so many other people already doing this. So feel free to do that.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
really
just want to let you
talking
know
more
it's
about
not my idea. I don't want to. Right now, this is Eric Vessel's been texting me in the background, be like, we need to.
ah.
He came up with the cool name, so I can't take the credit for it. But yeah, we should do that. That's awesome.
Hey, Matt, I'm sorry you didn't come prepared to this meeting.
Yes, clearly.
I know.
That
Pathetic. It's just pathetic.
was awesome,
Thank you.
guys. Listen, you guys are phenomenal. Thank you so much
Ah.
to our sponsors. Thank you, MGI Digital Technology. Thank you to Paper Specs and Sabine and the DEA for supporting this little ragtag group of designers trying to figure out how to unlock the future with all these new technologies. So we will hopefully see you guys next month. Sabine, do you want to talk a little bit really quickly about the event that your webinar that you'll be presenting?
Yes, we're our yearly trends webinar. So really the 5 hottest, well, not 5, 7 actually, but nevertheless, we're talking about the hottest print design trends. And it's really, we're focusing not specifically on typography, but all about print. You know, what is coming up? What should you watch out for? How is print being used? And this is what Matt and I talked about earlier or touched on earlier. You know, there's so many different ways in which you can apply these different technologies, and we're going to be going deep on that, and and that's what I always know. But we all know print runs have gotten smaller, so a lot of these technologies and these print trends can be used on smaller print runs, which I think is fabulous. So it's on, I'm sorry, January 30. Go to paperspecs.com. There's a banner at the top where you can sign up. It's a free webinar.
Okay.
And we always have some amazing giveaways, so you might be there, Matt.
Well,
Definitely.
we will definitely be there. Sabine, send me the link so that I can put it onto
Yep.
the video link, and then I'll make sure that everybody gets that information on there. All right, guys. Well, listen, thanks again for all your time. It's been fantastic spending the past hour with you, and we will hopefully see you on Sabine's webinar, and then hopefully next month when we have our next designer.
I found it.
Oh,
What?
oh, is that
Sneeze.
you?
Oh, good. Well, you better
Oh
go.
my God!
I better see that in the next 20 minutes on my LinkedIn site. Or Matt, I'm going to be very upset with you.
It's a deer.
Awesome. Very cool, guys.
Fabulous.
All right, guys.
All right,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys. Bye. Good to see
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.